Hi guys, it's Cindy
And Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and it looks like we have sound today. So if we could get a verification, sorry about that last week. One of the main settings got reset on my software program here, but see if we get a verification. There's always a little bit of a delay, but it has been a pretty busy weekend so far.
We're still going. We've got another day left.
Another day of the weekend.
Although I'm sort of transitioning an extra day a weekend, and at the same time my week begins too. So
Yeah. So, do-it-yourself solar homestead got 10 chicks today.
nice.
Awesome. I'll make a video on it. Awesome. So, who else do we have here? We have Built on a Rock Homestead. That's Kiri out in Texas. Incense Shop. Garrett likes horses. Hello. Are you new?
New?
Or maybe once before. I think I had another Garrett. I don't know if you changed the name. Linda
Linda,
Taylor
yeah.
is here. Did I miss anyone? I think that's everybody so far who's chatted anyway. Hello to everybody, and to the silent watchers in the background. Hello to you guys too. Your mom's not gonna be here this week either, is she?
I'm guessing not.
She's busy on a cruise.
Yeah, let's see, they left. I guess they left midweek, or no, they left Sunday or Monday. Oh, that was a week ago. So I don't know. I think the cruise is more than a week.
A lot of those are 2 weeks,
like a week and
but
a
it
half.
might be 10 days or
I mean,
something.
I know they're gone for a while because they made a stop on with friends.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little more than a week. So they may actually still be on. Yeah, they're on the boat yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, there are more pictures.
My dad had a picture.
Yep. So loud and clear. Awesome. And if it's too loud, let me know, but I think we're okay. We did get one video up earlier today on candied flowers and herbs, and in particular, we did a candied violet that was recorded a couple weeks ago, but we still have some violets.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was cutting a little bit that we still had them. I thought we were going to loot. I grabbed them quick. So yeah, candying edible flowers is pretty easy, and I did it purposefully. We just did it one night, real quick.
After live show, I think it was one night.
I don't know if it was after live show.
Something. It was
that kinda... No, I was out in the yard earlier.
Oh, okay.
I had to pick them, so.
That's true.
But yeah, I did them with just regular sugar, and I did them really quick and simple. I could do them a lot fancier. There's a few other tricks and get some, really nice things, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to get the basic ones done.
Yeah. So we have a few candied violet. You could do that with what else? Roses.
Any edible, delicate leaf or petal. Ideally something that has a nice flavor, so you can do your softer herb leaves.
Yeah.
And yeah, edible flavorful petals. And they don't even have to be flavorful petals as long as they're edible.
Mm-hmm.
And probably not from the florist, because frequently
not from the florist.
They preserve them with all kinds of things that you don't in your garden.
You could probably do some like some the raspberry leaves and stuff like that too.
I think that's a little tough.
Are they a little tough? I mean, the new ones. I was thinking the ones you make.
Maybe. I think that's pushing it.
Yeah.
I mean, basil leaves. I've seen sage. I mean, sage is pretty strong, but it's kind of fuzzy. But the big thing is violets,
and rose petals.
You can also do nasturtium leaves.
Right. Yeah.
Although nasturtium you can't do whole nasturtium because they're a lot bigger and.
Right.
What else? There's something.
Another edible flower. Yeah. You could probably do the nasturtium flowers.
No, it wouldn't be the leaves. It would be the flowers. But even that, you need to be careful because it's a very delicate flower. There was something else we used to get by.
I don't know. Anyway, lots of different options.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think you can go through anything that's just super delicate. It could be sugared.
Yeah, and I did keep, because last week I made some pictures of to show you guys, and with the sound issues we switched to our cell phone, which means it couldn't take the picture. So this was actually a picture from last week. It's the chicken forage.
Candy those yellow
brassica flowers.
Yeah, the mustard flowers or brassica flowers. They're delicate. That would be candyable.
Yeah.
You want to take the stems out, or you're going to cut the stems out either after they're candied and stabilized, or trim them down before. If you leave them on, you kind of get a handle. So yeah, the stems can be crunchy enough. You want them removed before you use them.
So, but these will be for the chickens. Yeah. That is our chicken forage.
Redbud just finished really quick.
Oh yeah, redbud you could probably do.
You could probably do redbud. That'd be a pain because they're so small.
Yeah, they are.
There's complaints from Navi that we've had just rain and rain and rain. We had some pretty windy rain. So the red buds showed up for just about a week, and the apple blossoms,
Yep.
and they all blew off the tree before she could collect them for her tea.
Yep.
So she was upset because she could only get them once a year.
These were our apple blossoms last week. They're gone now.
Oh yeah, they're long gone.
They're, well, not too long. These were last week, but they definitely blew off this week. We did get our some new bags for covering the apples they're basically wedding favor bags, and I do have a video on that if you guys check that out from about a year ago, probably almost exactly, where you take the wedding favor bags and put them over the tiny growing apples and protect them from bugs.
Or any other fruit.
Or any other fruit. Yeah, you could do that with peaches and pears and grapes and cherries.
If you get really fancy about it, you can put glass bottles over fruit, and then
pour brandy over it.
You use a special hanger to hold them on, and then you trim the fruit, and you leave the fruit. You kind of wash the fruit off, and then you wash the bottle, and then you can fill it with
some liquor.
Yeah, you make brandy out of the fruit, out of that specific fruit, ideally.
Yeah.
Well, fruit from those trees, and then you would.
Cool. Yeah, we had that pear one. Or do you still have it?
It's downstairs.
Okay.
Never opened it. I don't know if we ever will.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun idea.
It was $80 when I got it.
Yeah.
So I think it was $80. It wasn't cheap.
So
that was
actually.
Geez, that was. I don't know, 15 years. I don't remember.
That was a long time ago.
Was that? I think that was before we were married. It wasn't when I was on Mac. We got up north. I think it was.
That would have been over 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was probably about 17 years ago. Yeah. 18 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Still hanging in there. The pear's still there.
Yeah, it is. It hasn't fallen apart yet.
At that point, I think there's only one or two places in the United States doing that. It's a French technique. Yeah.
So another thing I finally finished today. Didn't make a video on it. I might make a little summary video on it, but we did a little coop renovation. So I took 1-inch hardware cloth that I picked up. This is actually the coated stuff. And I put that down, and then also one other change in there was I put, instead of 2x2 roofs, I put 2x4 roofs, which I like better for the chickens because they're not really set to hold on to things. They're ground animals for the most part, so I like it so they can put their feet all the way out. Plus, if you have them in a coop like this in the winter, that way they could cover their toes when it gets cold outside. But we do move them inside into a more secure coop.
Hello, Claire.
Oh, hi, Claire. But we do move them into a warmer coop for the winter. But this is the new changes. And of course, I have a removable roof on this. So that I made, 2 years ago. So again, have a series of videos, but those were the adjustments for the season. I didn't have large enough hardware cloth in there for all the poop to get through. So moved it up a notch, the 1-inch hardware cloth, and should help. We're moving the chickens in hopefully tonight after the show, which is probably a month and a half later than we wanted to.
We have they're looking at the grass upset.
Yeah.
We've used every bit of grass we could get, moving our fences around in front of the coops.
Yeah, so they've pretty much eaten that up.
Yeah, it's down in mud.
This way they could get on the forage that we planted for them.
Lucky was jumping up and down in a mud puddle this morning. He was stomping his feet like a little kid in a mud puddle.
Yeah, well, those geese love the mud and water. So I had that done today. Also got into the greenhouse a little bit, did some transplanting, but found this little guy in there. So I had a little butterfly in with the pepper plants. And you had something else in there earlier in the week.
Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. I had a client come by, and I ran upstairs to meet them. And as I was running out of the front doors in the greenhouse, there was a hummingbird
in the greenhouse.
It had come through we'd gapped the edge to air vent the heat, and it had come through there and was having a hard time finding a way out. I've actually seen 3 or 4 hummingbirds this week. They are abundant.
Yeah, they just came out.
Yes, my parents are still on the cruise, I believe, or at least on vacation. Yeah.
Yeah. So still on the West Coast somewhere.
Yeah, I'm almost certain they're on the boat still.
Another thing in the greenhouse, I did get a good picture of all the trays of soil blocks. So I've been moving things to the large soil blocks. And then next week they'll probably get outside, but those are mainly pepper plants, some eggplants and such. We do have some herbs in the little tiny soil blocks down there. And then out of the picture, we have some tomatoes as well. So lots of things growing there. Lots of wild things blooming outside too. In our back patio, we have columbine. We have two types. This is kind of the more common columbine, and this self-planted out back. So this is in our dog area actually. And let me see if I could find the second.
Oh, it might have been planted. It could have been planted by the people
Could
before
have
us.
been, but it didn't
Comes
show
back
up the
every
first
year.
year,
Okay.
and it does come back every year. So, and the second one that started coming back every year is this black one, which is kind of cool. So we have a black columbine and a common columbine both growing there, and we now have like 5 plants. I think they
There's
don't
a number of
bloom.
them all over the place.
Yeah, they don't bloom until their second year. So we have a few new plants going. We have 3 of them blooming, 2 black ones and 1 common one. And then I think we have another one next to the common one coming up and another one next to the dryer vent coming up. So I'm going to try to move those.
Yeah, you can put them into the front or something.
Yeah, I think I'll probably move them into the food forest because they're pretty and interesting native plants. So, and I have to fix a picture here. So, okay. So we do also have honeysuckle in the back. We have a pink variety and this white variety in back. So that is just finishing up. That's been blooming for a couple weeks. Some people don't like it because they find it to be more invasive. It's not technically considered invasive in Michigan. It's not on the invasive shrub list, but
because it's already invaded. Everybody's got it.
It is non-native, or most types are. There are a couple native varieties, but most types out there are non-native. But they're basically some of the first shrubs to start taking over like fields and such. So as things progress to woods, it'll get shaded out by taller trees and won't survive that. But we have that. And I'm trying to see if I could fix a picture I forgot to fix earlier, which I thought I did. It doesn't want to, but we also have, I'll just do this. It's not the best picture because it's zoomed in too much, but those are the pink ones we have out back as well. So lots of things growing. In fact, how many people do we have in the room so far? We just have 8 people in here. Wow. Okay, well, it is a holiday weekend.
Yep.
It is a holiday weekend.
Not surprised.
Yeah. So
sorry, we got 8 good people.
Yeah, 8 good people. Now, actually, I'm going to check my list because it's also the last weekend of the month. And I think there's only one person in the room who cannot win this month. So, should we go ahead and do a giveaway?
Those are pretty good odds.
You got 1 in 7 odds. Sorry, Carrie. Oh, now Tina's in the room too, but Tina can win as well. So we'll do our giveaway. Should we go ahead and do that now? I think we could go ahead and do it now.
Yep.
People may keep joining in, but because my question leads into the next set of pictures. But the rules are the first person who answers the question on our screen, answers correctly on our screen, which could be different than your screen, and I do apologize for that. That does sometimes happen. But the first person to answer this question correctly on our screen will win the prize. And what are the choices for prizes this week or this month?
So we're going to do a 2-pack of pasta from my company is one option.
Yep.
So we frequently have that available as well. But of course, it's organic wheat. But that means it is wheat and it does have gluten. So if that's something that is not interesting to you, I also vend olive oil, and typically it's kind of expensive, so I typically don't offer that. But we're going to put an option for a bottle of olive oil. It's a half a liter, and it's from Lebanon. We work with another company in our area where the daughter grew up there, and they have from their small groves where they're kind of preserving the old olives. They produce a very nice extra virgin olive oil that is sort of on the medium to almost light, lighter bodied salad oil.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's really nice. So I have an option. Actually, we have 2 varieties of that. So whoever wins it, we could discuss.
The flavor profiles.
Yeah, the very slightly different flavor profiles.
The one comes from her father's.
One is from her father, from their personal property.
Yeah, her father's
their
grove.
grove that they've had, I think, in their family for a couple hundred years. And then the other one comes from their village.
Yeah.
Basically, one's a little buttery and lighter, and one's a little more green grassy.
Yeah.
But neither one are overpowering. So yeah,
Very good.
We have half a liter of olive oil that we can send out to somebody, or a 2-pack of pasta, and then we can discuss the available pasta options that we have in stock, which is about like 12 or 15 or something. And we could send out 2 different bags of that.
Yep, or 2 of the same bag.
Or 2 of the same. Yep.
So for those of you guys, again, if anyone just joined in, the rules to this is the first person to answer this question who shows up on our screen, our chat screen here, wins, and you cannot have won in the last 3 months, which basically would exclude Valerie D, Crystal Beesbrock, and Kiri from Built on the Rock. So sorry, Kiri, you can answer, but you can't win. So the question this time is for those of you guys who also follow our Instagram. Which plant did I feature with a lot of information? Which forage plant?
Spit it out, they're going to be on your Instagram.
Which forage plant did I feature this week? So we'll let people probably look it up if they haven't already, but at least that way they're visiting the Instagram account and maybe start following there. But we did feature one foraged item that the spring identification of it, and gave a lot of detail in the description as well as the picture.
Violet, that's a good guess. That's a good wild guess.
But it wasn't violet.
Yeah, I don't know. We didn't have the crystallized violets on Instagram, did we?
No, I don't think so.
That was just the video that went up, though.
It did, yeah. That video went up today. I was actually saving the pictures to promote it on Instagram after the video went up. I haven't done that yet. So, but this is one that has a whole big description underneath the picture as well. So if I did put other plants up, I don't remember. This one definitely has
this one up in the
full.
last few days.
Yeah, it was just
clover. Oh, we got good guesses.
No, not clover. It just went up just in the last few days.
Something that just started blooming on our end. So
it smells really good.
We're still running just a little late. It had been cool, but I think we're catching up. But we've had tremendous amounts of rain, just inches and inches of rain for about 2 weeks.
And this one tends to open up in the sunshine, it seems.
Yeah.
But it's all open today. I was out that back, and it smells so good. But yeah, you just walk by it and you get a big waft of scent. Autumn Olive, Claire. Yes, you looked.
It's all right.
Claire, you got it.
You don't know it offhand. Be smart and fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and check out. There is actually a link to our Instagram account in the description of this video. So, Autumn Olive.
Tina
was
close. Composite polymer almost.
So this just started blooming. This was the picture. So
Claire, you're going to get a hold of us through the website?
Through email.
Through the email.
Email or Facebook. You can Facebook message or private message to us.
Or Instagram. You can
send private messages on Instagrams. Or email. Our email is parttimepermies, all one word, @gmail.com. So, yeah, whichever way, just let us know if you'd like some pasta or if you like the olive oil, and let us know where to send it.
Yep. Address. If you're looking for, so either grassy or buttery on the olive oil. If you're looking for pasta, I have many short and long versions that if you aren't aware, I make them. That's my business. And you can look on my website, West Michigan Provisions, or West
West Michigan
Michigan
pasta and
pasta and provisions. Either one
provisions.com.
will come up.
Okay.
And you can look through there. Not quite everything's listed, so I'm happy to discuss
Yeah.
other
If there's
things.
others.
And most of them do not have egg in them. If you have egg, so if that's an
Yeah.
issue. And I
There's a
have
lot of
few
vegan ones.
flavored, I have a few flavored,
Yeah.
vegetable flavored things. So if you're interested in pasta, making the choices hard, we can
And by the way,
discuss those.
the link to the webpage for your business is in the
Oh, yeah.
description below. So there is a link there. You can check
Probably
things
put a
out.
link to your Instagram.
There is a link to the
Yeah, it's
Instagram there, so she probably found it that way potentially. So
Tina's usually follows too. I thought she might have that one in a
just
hurry.
scared my hubby. 2 seconds too late. Oh, okay.
It's pretty
Yeah.
close.
So, maybe next time, Tina. So that means, Claire, that next 3 months you cannot win, but you won this month, so congratulations. Just joined, and I love that smell. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a pretty good patch of fairly matured large autumn olives in a number of places, as well as our neighbor's property, which covers another couple acres. So there are bushes scattered all over. So I could smell it. I was turning the garden, and I could smell whiffs of it at times blowing out of the forest.
It is everything. Yesterday, the day before, just a few of the bushes were starting to open, the ones in the most sun. And today I went walking with the dog back there, and it's like all of them are open today. So the whole forest
Things are growing really fast that are in because of the rain. We did have we had stuff browning out early in the week. And Cindy's like, I don't know if we have enough nitrogen. I said, no, the roots are wet.
They're just too wet.
They're not happy because they're soaking wet, and we're on sand, as we keep telling everybody. So it only takes 2 to 3 days to dry out. We had a little rain last night. It's been pretty well. We had some clouds come in and out a couple times yesterday. We had a big storm mostly miss us yesterday. Yeah. We've got rain coming in tomorrow again. And so, like, I hadn't mowed the lawn for 2 weeks. I'd done one quick mow. Mm-hmm. So it was getting really long between my schedule and so much rain, couldn't even get out to mow. And our neighbors are all doing the same thing. We're all, and the farmers a week or two ago, they were 80% of the corn still wasn't in.
Look at what Claire just wrote. Asked hubby what he prefers. He said the olive oil.
Oh, really?
That's where his dad's from.
All right.
His dad's Lebanese.
Well, awesome. This is pretty nice because a lot of the olive oil in Lebanon is abused. It's made for mass market of like oil for just general cooking and frying. So it's picked too late and it's kind of rancid. It's not processed fast enough. Just like anything, you can have a low yield and get a high quality, or you can extend it. So this is really nice. It's the person who actually imports it's local, and we work with them directly. Mm-hmm. She's a food scientist, so she oversees the whole process and keeps checking, all the way along. And then as we hold it, they keep it held chilled, and so it's unique. In fact, one of them from their property won a silver medal in Italian taste testing last year. They are there right now with a little bit of a vacation as well as going to that taste test. So it is really good, and there just is not a lot of. There's tons of oil from Lebanon. It's just very little of it comes to the U.S. Yeah. So it's kind of special from that end. They're Sumerian olives, which means they are some of the oldest olives. Some of them are 5,000 to 6,000 year old olive trees in their area. And they're certified to be among the oldest in the world, or the oldest in the world. Now there's just a dozen or 18 or something remaining that are protected, but olives grow in groves, so they continue to spread. So you actually have a closer similarity than if you were just planting multiple trees. So they're actually earlier than your Italian and Spanish and most of your African ones. They would have spread and differentiated over time. Yeah,
it's where the olive tree actually originally was cultivated.
And some places just say, "Oh, we're the first ones," but historically, there's pretty good evidence that's basically where the heavy use of olives started. Of course, it's in the it's in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East, so it grows. They grow like weeds.
So we saw that at the farmers market as well, and
I think it's actually posted on our web.
We do
have it on our website.
We got to update it.
We need to update it because we have a new size bottles, and we have
new pricing for the new size.
New pricing, and it's the New Year's. So yeah, we actually need to update it.
Yeah.
But
But
anyway,
anyway,
so yeah,
so
it's a lot of fun.
yeah.
And it has
So
a good story. I mean, it has a close. So the reason we can sell in the farmers market is we don't grow olives in the area,
no.
but we have a tight origin. We can say exactly where it came from, and we
Yep.
can, it has a story, it has a place, it comes from small farms, and every market has their criteria, but all of our markets have accepted it as a appropriate thing to be sold at an agricultural market.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So that's a fun one. And it goes, I mean, the story behind it kind of goes along with what we're doing is, trying to
Well,
help people.
and Carol, who's her family's,
Yeah.
um, and it's not like they own a huge olive oil production like there's some, we have vineyards and we're a wine family. She has half of their family allocation, which is a fairly small amount.
Yep.
So she actually comes out to the markets with us a lot of the time, and people get to chat with her and about it, which is a lot of fun.
Carrie tried planting 2 olive trees, but they died.
They're like a
Texas.
lot of things. They're hard to get established, but once they set in, they're hard to kill. I mean, olive trees grow for hundreds of years, and something I didn't
Thousands.
know, yeah, or thousands. What I didn't know is, so the groves they spread, but they shed the middle dies, and they keep growing around the
Yeah.
outside like most trees. So you can have a hollow middle of these very large trees that are pretty much hollow in the middle,
But
but
they're
have
still alive.
live sections around them. So
Yeah.
I think you'd have to do more
Hello, food
looking,
forest.
but I think you really have to watch them closely and do some irrigation and a little babying. You get to a point where, I mean, they just grow. Not all of them are organic, and you can get a higher yield if you treat them. But once they get established, they do very well with nothing, or maybe if it gets extremely dry. But they're in very, very dry areas. They do not need much watering, but your first years are going to be tough.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do we have growing other than
We got a lot of things growing.
we do have a number of things. I only have a couple of pictures here, but this again was from last week, so I figured I'd show it. We have asparagus growing in our garden, although it's a lot bigger than that now.
All the way sprouted and what, 3 feet high, 2 feet high.
A lot of them are about 3 feet
So these
high.
were crowns that were 1 or 2 year old crowns, maybe 2 year old crowns.
No, they were just last year.
No, we put them in,
Oh,
but you
yeah.
always buy them as different. So you can get starts, you can get crowns. So I think these were 1 year crowns.
Yeah. And then we have some stuff growing in our food forest just starting. That is Good King Henry, which you keep the greens from. And it's a perennial that you can keep going. So once you have it established. And then we have some strawberries in bloom. So I'm hoping for some strawberries.
And those are based off of the wild ones that we pulled out of our forest.
Yeah.
Put in the garden so they
get
grow
bigger.
Even better and get a little bigger.
And we can actually get them when they're ripe.
They're wild variety.
And we could get them before the animals because they're in our garden. We also have some horseradish growing in the food forest. I have plans to move some of the wild strawberries from the garden to the food forest. So we'll have some up there as well. Yeah, so we have a whole lot of different things. We also have, potatoes growing. I didn't get a picture of. We have some brassicas growing. We have basically Brussels sprouts and cabbage. And I tried planting my broccoli and cauliflower. Both got eaten, so I'm going to have to restart.
We had a lot of it eaten last year too. There's something that likes it.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to try to restart those.
Well, that's where the sea kale, if we can get that, I mean, it's going slow, but if we can get that to take off.
Adam has a comment.
Oh, yeah.
Yes or no to Velveeta cheese?
Well, I don't know if you've seen our video on and that may be why you're responding. I am a proponent for the Velveeta cheese. And by the way, it is listed as cheese.
Yeah.
It qualifies as cheese. There isn't oils and fillers. I like it because it emulsifies and holds everything together, and it has a nice base flavor. I think you should add other things over the top, but it makes for a very good base along with your
for mac and cheese.
Yeah. I don't use it for hardly anything. It makes a good grilled cheese, like a really gooey.
I like,
salty, but that's about the only
I like Munster and stuff for my grilled cheese, but yeah, you have lots of options on that one. It's a little harder to make a good creamy mac and cheese that's not gritty or
Yeah, I mean
have
it's
other
hard to get it
issues.
in there. And if you look at it, 'cause I was just writing nutritional labels, and I had Velveeta built into um, and I was looking at it. So Kraft Velveeta has no added oil. It basically has milk, dehydrated milk powder, whey powder, dehydrated, whey powder. So they're all milk derived products. It does have, I think, two natural colorants, annatto and something else. And it has a little potato starch and one other natural starch, again, to emulsify and thicken.
Hmm.
Um, and a few other things. There was nothing. I went through every item on it, and it's nothing too crazy. I mean,
Yep.
it has a processing and emulsion and a whip to it, but and they've cleaned it up. I think over the years it was a little more. At one point, it was not cheese because it wasn't starting. There's a debate whether it starts with curds because Wisconsin was cheese is with curds, and they were using culture, milk and culture, but not getting a full curd. At this point, they do use cheddar cheese and other things. And so whatever the legal on it is, and you can get, it actually is stated and is cheese. So whether that makes
Yeah.
you feel better or doesn't, I mean, it's not fancy cheese.
No.
It's based,
Yeah.
but it's dairy product. And that way, I think it's, other than it's quite salty, is a healthful, nutritious item in proportion.
So Claire just picked her first broccoli heads and spent an
Mhm.
hour picking off the green worms. So I
Wow,
think
you're
the
way ahead of
cabbage
us.
worms.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
what part of the country are you in? We're up north in Michigan, so ours, well, part of it we could have planted ours a little
Yeah,
earlier, but
the worms are protein, but that doesn't really make most of us feel better. But I mean,
no.
it probably makes it more nutritious. But I never. Yeah, so salted water. Um, use room temperature, very lightly warm water also when you soak it. Cold water causes bugs to burrow deeper into lettuces. So if you can use sort of a lightly warm water, just briefly, so you don't wilt it, it will allow them, if anything, to come out into the warmth instead of dig into the crevices.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have too many worms, it's hard to just do anything about it.
North Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
definitely south of
you're
us.
way ahead of us.
Yeah, we are really our brassicas outside are
Hoop houses
just
are
starting
getting
to,
close to probably cutting some
yeah,
small the first heads if you hooped way early
yeah.
in our area.
So our potatoes are just starting to emerge, so we're getting those coming up.
People are cutting field kale. So the pattern of radishes and kale early and held over turnips.
Yeah.
Asparagus was up as of last week. We had a little bit the week before, but it was really last week when it hit. And that's about where we're at. So we're running a little behind, but not too far behind. And then anything that was held over or hooped.
So Food Forest says, don't kill the wasps, they feed on the cabbage worms. Yeah, there's only one wasp I really don't like, and they're the ones that burrow in the ground, sometimes near our barn.
Those aren't real. Well, those are yellow jacket.
They're yellow
They're
jackets. They're a type of
yeah.
wasp.
I mean they're a ground wasp.
Yeah.
Not the big ones. Yeah.
Build burr houses and they snack on the cabbage worms as well. Now that we do have, we have bluebirds that come back every year, but they seem to catch our mosquitoes. But I've never noticed them actually going into the garden to catch worms. But we are going to have to try to attract some
Tomato
other birds.
worms are hard to get. Even our chickens are a little mixed on them. Some will attack them. Most will attack them. Some will eat them. Some will not. I think they're just so bad tasting and gooey that
I don't know.
even in the chickens, they're hit or miss.
Initially, they were very leery of them, but when I threw one in with a mama with chicks, and she attacked it like it was an invader, and then once she broke into it, she got excited and started eating it and brought the chicks to her. So they're learning to like them. But
and last year we were good. We only got a dozen or so. It was very maybe less. The year before we got hit pretty hard. And of course, you turn around, you know what happens, and you're losing like
plants left and right,
whole plants overnight, and you're like, oh, and of course you know that you can use a black light. They're very hard to see. They sit on a stalk, and the way they stretch out, you're looking right at them, and you don't notice.
They blend right in.
But you can catch them in the dark with a black light, and they'll light right up, and they're easy to get.
Yeah. So we get our hornworms, which the tomato worms. we do get them on our potatoes as well. So I've seen them on our potatoes and our tomatoes. Those are the
prefer
main.
the tomatoes, but they will go over to the potatoes a little bit.
Yeah, so they definitely like the nightshades. I have not seen them on our um, peppers or eggplant yet, or ground cherries.
Eggplant had something else eating it last year.
Yeah.
Took a while to snap back.
Enjoy your worms. Oh no. You can feed them to the chickens if you have any.
If they do too much damage and leave too much webbing in there, you have to feed the whole thing to the chickens.
Yeah, they'd like that too. But which we should go on to our next segment because we were headed that direction anyway, which is the Ask the Chef segment. If you guys have any questions, I don't have any pictures of local meals from this week. I don't think we had too much.
We've been pretty busy.
Yeah, this has been a really busy week.
Well, we ordered pizza.
Yeah.
And then we got local non-La Vietnamese.
Yeah.
New style Vietnamese.
We ate out a couple times. Or
yeah,
ate
because
in
I've been on a real
out.
busy schedule. I'm running 3 markets, plus I have wholesale. I've had a bunch of projects that it looked like it was a slow week on sales heading into the wholesale stuff, heading into the holiday, and then all of a sudden I got hit with a bunch of special orders that turned into a pretty busy week. And I don't know what this week's looking like. I feel like coming out of the holiday, I may be a little slow on some of them. But again, I had people that didn't order last week. Yeah. They're sort of regular customers. They're going to be out of product. So I know they're going to dial in, even if they're not on top of it for the beginning of the week, the end of the week, they're going to be looking for products. Yeah. So, and then again, we're still doing 3 markets. And I just got a special project, a research project out of my drawing room. So I need to make a lot of pasta. I need to keep up. I just took 130 or 150 bags off the shelf for 2 special orders, and that didn't include markets. So yeah. It looked like we were pretty loaded up, and we've been trying to preload. But I'm like, I gotta keep pushing, or we're gonna run out of a couple varieties, and
not good
because I can only move them through the drying room so fast.
But yeah, no. And today was pretty simple. We had burgers, cheeseburgers, nothing local on that one.
No, we had avocado that was laying around. So
that's not local.
Grape tomatoes and.
Well, we don't have our tomatoes.
It wasn't
yet.
even good beef. I mean, it was just average beef. And yeah, that was. Had a papaya. That was not local.
We actually eat just about everything, Adam. So I haven't had a lot of fast food unless we're traveling, but we'll do it.
Yeah, I'm not too picky about fast food, although I eat less and less.
Yeah.
I think in some ways it doesn't really bother me, although I find it a little harder to digest just a little than
especially
previously.
When you're not
but
used to
I think it's somewhat if the more and more you eat clean, or and we don't eat crazy clean. Part of working in a restaurant, I'm always involved in all kinds of stuff, so I felt like I always had a good tolerance for all kinds of things. But I think a lot of the fast food places have continued to change their formulas and recipes or their products, and I think they're becoming harder to eat. They're playing more with their oils and their additives and their front. Like McDonald's never bothered me, and it just seems like it's harder to digest now than it ever was. And I know people have always said that for years, but it was never. So I think we always change over time too. But I don't find it hard to eat out. I'm lightly selective.
We have our favorite restaurants.
I guess what I do is a couple of things I've talked about. I prefer to eat ethnic mom and pop local things because I think you get a better value and a better interesting food doing that. Or tend towards something that's a little more fine dining. The middle ground, like I can't remember the last time or if I've ever been to a Cheesecake Factory type, or the chains, because what happens is they put all their money into marketing, into making money. They don't really offer you a really great, unique item. They're kind of playing hits, but they're not doing it as well as other people. And so it's like they're charging you a decent amount, but they're not really delivering anything unique. So I guess we kind of avoid that, and I'd rather eat less expensive and then save money to go out less often to a nicer, more specialty place because I feel like I'm getting my money's worth.
Yeah. One of our go-tos is a Vietnamese place that's run by
A
chef friends.
local, yeah, I mean, a very good chef, and they're not overly pricey at all. They're
Yeah,
very,
very reasonable, and they're like 2 miles away from us.
yeah.
So
But we have a local hot dog stand. It's an old style drive up hot dog stand, hot dog and burgers. Nothing special. They do root beer, but it's locally owned by a guy. The owner's out all the time, and the food's pretty decent. And so it's
that
kind of fun to go there. Um,
food forest, the interesting thing, it's not at 80% raw, but they do always like Vietnamese food almost always has like some sliced cucumbers and some sliced
mhm.
carrots, julienne carrots, some like raw vegetables on the side of their dish, and then they'll have the rice dish with whatever they're putting with
Well,
it.
if you
But
look at most world cuisine, they serve either some raw vegetables or herbs
pudding,
or something pickled that's lightly
yeah,
pickled or fermented. Um, and because it helps with digestion
yeah,
because you're basically inoculating, you're giving and helping break everything down. So yeah, I'm not real picky about places. Again, working in restaurants, I have to be pretty broad spectrum. What bothers me is when I go to a place, whatever their scale and level of expectation, if they fail to meet that,
mm,
and they underperform, like, you don't have to way overperform going to the local hot dog stand.
yeah,
But I do want, the food warm and I want it safe and, or the fries crispy or whatever it is. Um, if I'm going to a really expensive, notable place, it better be really good.
yeah.
So it's when they underperform or when I see absolute gross negligence in food handling, safety, quality, having no idea what they're doing in presentation, or what they said they're doing something, and they make a sauce that has nothing to do with what they said they're doing, or really really bad service where people just don't care or doing So when you're going above and beyond to not do it properly, that bothers me,
Yeah,
and it should because we're all spending our money
yeah.
on things. So yeah, I know there are chefs that do not eat out. Either they're really bored or bothered by it or grossed out by all the bad things that can happen in kitchens. Um, some chefs kind of grew up in other parts of the world where you don't eat out a lot and they're not real comfortable eating out. They'd rather just eat. So I know chefs that make very fancy food, yet they want to just go home and eat very simple traditional food where, whatever it may be. Um, and just don't go out. I think for fine dining chefs need to go out because you need to see what
Good
other people are
ideas.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to get ideas, you need to be refreshed, you need to explore other flavors and integrate um, ideas and dishes in your own way.
Mm,
And I think that you can't keep up. I mean, if you're doing the same thing and you're just doing steakhouse all the time, but even everything's changed. The competition's there.
yeah.
If you're not eating around, or if you're in a smaller format and you're going to a big city, get into a big city, see how they're doing it, see if you can bring a few pieces, something from the big city that it might work back to
Gosh,
your area. So,
that's one thing we don't have here. Met 4 fire ants this week. Bad reaction. Was told to use honey. It's positive results.
huh?
On the road to
Just
recovery.
regular honey or some of the specialty honeys? Yeah, we don't have fire ants in Michigan. When I was in
Mm,
Atlanta, I was landscaping in college.
yeah.
I would get fire ant bites regularly. I didn't react badly, but I felt like they're way more annoying than a mosquito bite because they burn and they hurt. Of course, you can get if you're standing on them, they're pretty aggressively up your boot, and before you realize that, they're up your work boot and in your pants or in your
That would not be good.
in your socks, and they just bite and bite and bite.
And you're stripping them the next second.
Well, not maybe just whack them off, but yeah, they're pretty.
Yeah.
So I don't miss the fire ant situation when we were in Atlanta.
Once went to a Subway and the fluorescent light bulbs in the bathroom burnt out. Didn't even flicker. If you're too cheap to replace the light bulb, how are you
Well,
cutting
that's
health?
beyond your
Yeah.
health. I mean, that your
Yeah.
health code actually tells you how much lighting you need in public areas, how much you need in workspaces, how much you need in coolers and storage. Yeah, that's a big. If all the lights are burned out or things like that, that's a big indication that there's many many other things they're failing to do.
Yep.
I can tell you an inside that the sandwich shops and Subway, the margins are extremely slim. It's almost impossible to make money on them as an owner. And so it's a pretty bad situation. So people are cutting every corner or they're just discouraged. So the back end of that is $5 footlongs and all those other things sound great for the consumer, and they are, but they've cut the margins so tight over the years.
They
And
can't make money.
Subway, by the way, most of their deli meats are actually made with turkey. A lot of the things that you would traditionally make with pork, and I don't think they're doing it for dietary. It's just turkey's cheaper than pork, or the processing some of these items. So they're really pinching every penny. So that's a perfect example of a place that gives an okay sandwich, but it's far from a great sandwich because they're way more concerned about the money end of it versus a local deli, which may charge twice as much, but I mean, you get a sandwich hopefully, and hopefully a little more love put into it than a tractor trailer rolling up with everything ready to go.
Yep. So back to Tina answered your question. It was just a local honey on a gauze pad. So
Interesting.
Well, honey also, it probably blocks the access to air. It's definitely antibiotic, so there's definitely some other uses.
But yeah, I do think it's nice, if you can grow. Our goal is to approach 50%, try and grow 50% of our products, especially in season. We preserve some stuff. I do a lot of whole animal butchery. We don't grow other than the chicken. I do trade a little bit of duck and rabbit with one person. And then we have done beef and pork with different farms that we've created relationships with them. And then I tend to break it down from a whole, pastured, or if they're organic or they're grass fed, it changes the flavor. I think it probably is a good thing for the health. And then we do some forage stuff, and we do buy a little bit of forage stuff when we don't have time to get our own.
Yep. Because we have connections to our foraging lady. Well, actually, she sells at the market anyway. And Carrie's gluten-free now, so she doesn't go to the Subway shops.
Yeah, that makes, if you're diabetic or you're gluten-free or other things doing.
Or you're pregnant, because you cannot eat deli meat unless it's cooked. So that cuts out Subway.
Well, they're eating all the sandwiches too.
No, they can't. It's not hot enough.
Oh, really?
It's in the list. It's not hot enough.
Even with their
toasted ones are not hot enough. So
and the handling in a place like that is also different than. So if you're buying deli meat, buying deli meat, say the pre-packaged deli meat that's hanging in the refrigerated area, those are pretty tightly controlled by the processor. Versus if you go to the deli and have them sliced to order, we know that those slicers get all kinds of lack of cleaning and swapping pieces of different pieces of things that they're cutting. So if you had to pick one or the other, the pre-packaged, which people assume to be lower quality, may or may not be lower quality, but they are definitely lower contamination risk.
The problem is if there's a contamination problem with those, it's widespread versus a local.
But they also check those constantly before they lay. So it's the listeria and things, which are pretty pretty bad, but yeah. So
anyway,
usually the green, actually when you're in a restaurant, it's the salad bar and the pantry that's probably the dirtiest area. One, you've got a lot of raw products.
Yeah.
Two, you have a lot of things that sit out or perishable. They need to be washed and cleaned. You have a lot of handling. And pantry, because it's sort of simpler or cheaper. It's actually not simpler. It's cheaper. Your least experienced people get put on that. It's not uncommon to train dishwashers, which, I mean, there are good and bad dishwashers. Train dishwashers, train beginning prep cooks, train people that do not speak the same language as you, so you have a hard time possibly conveying certain things at first. Or a lot of restaurants use the servers to make salads and desserts. So they're rushing in and out after greeting you, being coughed on, handling money, maybe handling dirty dishes, and then in a hurry they run over and make a salad or get a dessert. So actually, if you're going to have a contamination issue in most restaurants, it's probably coming off the pantry.
Yeah.
So not to scare anybody, but that's the go-to. That's where the health department looks first. Is many times is to the pantry. Yeah. Some people can taste the nitrates in meats. I think people get more sensitive over time, either age or having a lot of them. I can tell when there's nitrates, or especially when there's a real high level of nitrates. I've worked with people that get headaches pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. If I eat a lot of nitrates, I can get a headache. I've figured out. So some people are more or less sensitive. And there are a lot of things do not have nitrates, by the way. Most of your chicken and turkey things, but your pork and beef And things do. So bacon can go either way. By the way, you can make bacon without nitrates. It is pretty common to put nitrates in bacon.
But
Most
since you
commercial
cook
bacon.
it, you don't.
If you do a hot cooked, well, no, it has to do with the processing, the pre-processing before storage. So if you hot smoke it to full
Right.
temperature, you can produce a nitrate-free bacon. However, most commercial bacon has nitrates in some form or another added to it, both for the pink color, the flavor, and for the safety, of course. So, yep.
Yep. So, any other cooking related? We've been talking about eating out and all the stuff, processed stuff that you
Yeah,
can get
other
out.
questions that are not
And,
making people question about what they're eating, where they're eating. Yeah. I
but
mean, there is something that, and that's, there was a discussion. I remember a few years ago sitting in a panel. Well, there was a panel discussion, people complaining about school lunches, which I think is a travesty that we spend so little time. We farm it out to companies that then cut the middle out of it, hire people that are not able to do the job, and then don't pay the people that are able to do the job and produce food that's just not even hardly edible. But I heard all these mothers in a very wealthy area complaining about how bad the school lunch was. And it was like, I wanted to ask a question
Right, Tina.
and say, well, why don't you, if you're so concerned about this, why don't you make lunch for your kids?
Yeah.
I mean, this was not an impoverished area. This was a very wealthy area. I'm not going to say everybody was, but almost everybody was. And it was like, good, if that's your priority, then create other plans to produce lunch for your kids since they're your kids, whether you make it or you do whatever, if you want to have control over it and increase the quality. Now, that doesn't work for a lot of parts of the country.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe this panel and people are just going on and on complaining. It's like, well,
Yeah, I mean,
stop throwing it on the school and make lunch.
part of it is
Send it with your kid.
part of it. I mean, the school lunch program was originally set up to help those who are impoverished feed their kids, and not those who couldn't, afford to do. But
It
it's
still
expanded.
does a lot of that, but
It
yeah, it's
does.
expanded greatly.
It's expanded to be it's expanded to be something expectation for everybody rather than something that is your fallback if you can't do it.
So yeah, if you look at the school food lunch program, which is nice history you can look up, it's probably one of the big successes. So I think it was during the Depression, you had kids coming to school where the teachers quickly noticed the kids couldn't fall, they were falling asleep. They were fully malnourished. We're not talking, and we have people that are malnourished, and we have people that are mostly hungry or don't have choices of good food versus choices of some form of food or food-like substances, some people say. So it was kids were literally starving and coming to school in a condition starving where they could not focus to be able to learn. And so that's where they said, well, we've got to do something. What's the point of trying to educate everybody if we can't even keep them fed? And so that's where school lunch began. So there's some really good roots to it, and it still has that stopgap. But we're feeding breakfast, we're feeding lunch. Some places are feeding dinner. I mean, and it was never designed to be a substitute for people feeding their kids because they were so busy with jobs or whatever else, and that all happens, and sometimes you can't get around it. But yeah, and then of course it used to be people made things. I mean, the cafeterias had staff that made almost everything from scratch, and then it became less and less, and now it just gets trucked in, and you have food preparers and food assemblers. You have almost nobody who can actually banquet cook or buffet cook. I went to one school where they actually made breads. Not all their breads, but they made breads. They did everything from scratch. It was a private school. It was not a. I mean, lunches weren't highly priced. It was, it wasn't a super elite school. It was a Christian school, so there was a priority, and they never converted out. And they had mothers would volunteer, and we had people complain about the food wasn't good. They were crazy. The food was great, actually. It was so there was a lot of care, and they kept it cost effective. So I think we're really really messed up in that system, and
well, the high school I went to, they didn't have a cafeteria. They didn't provide any sort of cafeteria food or anything. They did have sack lunches.
So they probably had bagged lunches.
Sack lunches only available to those on the food assistance programs. We also had an open campus downtown Ann Arbor, so many people went out or brought their own food.
Of course, going out every day, as we all know, gets vastly expensive.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, it's
or you could go at that time to the bakery or deli next door where you could get 25-cent bread ends and cover them in jams that were free samples, and we probably took advantage of it, and they no longer do that anymore. So
so of course, yeah. So of course
yeah,
of course now the free lunch is less healthy than the lunch that came out of your garden.
yep,
By far. It's pretty scary, and it depends school system to school system, but it's pretty scary some of the things that
yep,
are served. And I mean, a lot of chefs have talked about they've paired commercial and professional chefs as well as to assist and do different things, but it all comes down to the priorities and ultimately whether it be politicians or school systems or whatever, they allocate money in a different direction.
So if you grow your own food and make your own food and bring your own lunches to school, it'd
yeah.
probably be a heck of a lot tastier and definitely healthier. But and we're working on growing more and more of our own food, and also buying local, a
Yeah.
lot of stuff local. But we're not,
Creating a balance. Yeah.
yeah, but we're not strict on all of it. But it definitely is tastier, I would say, as well.
Well, we know that chefs, it's not so much about the tech. Well, it's about technique, but it's ingredients that you start with, and the way to make really great food is to start out with really good product. And really good product doesn't sit around for a long time unless you're going through a special pickling or aging. That means when it's coming out of the garden, coming off your local land, the chances of it being really good when it gets to you and cutting out some of the middlemen and hopefully a little bit of the price for the quality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good food is never going to be cheap, but if you can take out some of the transportation, the middle people, you can keep good food a lot cheaper. And yeah, so fresh gets you there.
Yeah. Yeah, if you didn't have a choice on what lunch
Yeah,
was
yeah,
at
you had
school,
to,
yeah,
you maybe you had a menu, maybe you didn't. Otherwise, it was
whatever they had, you ate, or bring your own.
yeah,
So
yeah. I think we always had menus or we had two choices.
we didn't have many choices in elementary school, but middle school on, there were a lot of
Yeah, I
choices.
brought. Of course, I was in that day. There was a lot of. It was really converting over to a lot of pizza and fries and
Yeah,
things. And I brought lunch most of the time. Variety of things. I occasionally bought something, but it was so. Our high school at that point it was so terrible that you didn't dare. Whatever the meal of the day was, nobody even knew because nobody bought it.
yeah.
So they bought Pizza Hut mini pizzas, which got shipped in, and lots of French fries, and of course lots of chicken nuggets. I can't. I rarely bought any of that. I brought lunch, and I think almost all my friends, we brought lunch because unless we forgot it or something, it saved money. And what the high school offered was disgusting. It was terrible.
I had bibimbap a lot for
No, I
lunch
never had either for that.
because we'd go across the
Yeah,
street to the Korean place. Um, yeah, but that would get expensive. So dollar bread ends or bibimbap or a pizza bagel. Pizza bagel was probably the worst of all of them because the bread was fresh at Zingerman's, like really good bread. And the bibimbap was,
so
it
that
had to have more
bibimbap is
variety.
Korean style fried vegetables,
Yeah,
and sometimes it has other things, but
some meat sometimes
it's
in it,
almost like a
sometimes not,
tempura style. Sometimes it has some meat, and yeah.
and an egg over top.
Yep.
So
So
that
that's
was really
fairly
good.
balanced.
Yeah. Usually brought lunch. Um, yeah, so a lot of changes over time,
Yeah.
but you know, with fast food, with restaurants, with the lunch programs, all of that.
I mean, it's easy, and some of it's economics, and some of it's just people got lulled into. But
And
I think we always have to remember that it's
some of it has to,
not the school's responsibility to take care of our
no,
kids all day long and feed them all day. When they're filling in the gap because there's hardship, that's
that's one thing.
important. But
But
we,
part of it has to do with there's hardly ever at this point any stay at home anybody. Most of the families
yeah,
are two working families, and
correct.
it is hard time wise to find all the food. And I think that is a big problem as well because you can't afford, a lot of people can't afford to have one person stay home,
No, no.
whoever
I
it
mean,
is,
very,
father or
very,
mother.
very, very few people
Yeah,
at this point can,
yeah.
unless
Yeah.
So that is the difference without a regular cooking going on in the house, which is actually the detachment of after a couple of generations or even one, knowing what goes into food, how to make food, and what's healthy and what's not, or what's fresh and what's not, so that you can make those decisions.
Hmm.
Because if you buy everything prepared, you start losing track of nutritional balance and realizing, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much fat or salt or different ingredients because you've never made it. It's just food.
You know what I was laughing at? Um, you know those pregnancy apps and the things that say week by week, and they keep comparing it to different fruit, usually sometimes vegetables, on the size of the baby and what it's what equivalent food would be. And I'm sitting here going, some weeks it's really easy, but some weeks I'm like, I know what some of these things are, but how many people know what a kumquat is? How many people know really what a turnip is? They may have heard of it, but have
I
seen
can
them.
tell you that people
And
that
there's so
grow
many
up
different sizes of
people that
them.
grow up in cities, the vast majority have never handled a raw turnip
No,
or cooked a raw turnip or had it in anything, unless it was maybe in a
canned soup or
canned
something.
soup of some sort, where that was a staple item. And yeah, so that's and a kumquat is sort of a specialty item. I actually
Yeah.
like kumquats a lot, but I would say that's
How
a
many
good pull.
people
How many
know?
of you have had a kumquat or
Yeah.
have any idea what's
What?
unique about it or what the rough size of it
I know
is?
I've had it once, but I don't even remember, once or
Makes
twice.
amazing jam and other things.
Yeah. Anybody had kumquat?
I
Um,
love to work with them, but
I like quince.
well,
So
that doesn't have much to do with
no,
kumquat.
no. But another one that most people haven't heard
Yeah.
of. Um, I was actually going to look up what we are this week,
Oh yeah.
what fruit or vegetable we're supposed to be this week, because we're 18 weeks. Um, and it's just funny. I'm like, why is it always fruits and vegetables? Um,
I actually like. Yeah, you make well. And there is a way to get when you have to you get through it. So casseroles are inexpensive and they're filling. They're not always exciting, but they can be pretty good. And yeah, most casseroles heat up pretty good. I'm not opposed at all to heating up a casserole, leftover casserole for lunch or whatever.
or the size of a bell pepper today. So it is a vegetable today.
Well, bell peppers can have lots of
Lots
sizes,
of
can't they?
sizes
I mean, they can be that big or they can be that big, but I
too.
guess there's sort of a rough average.
And the grocery store ones can be absolutely monstrous sometimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it is correct. It's a small orange colored fruit. It is sour in general. It tends to be fairly seedy. It is like the size of a very large grape, um, like the jumbo sized grapes. I'd say it's about an inch roughly. Um, what's interesting is there's almost no pith. There's a very small amount of fruit. The fruit inside, again, if you frequently have to cut it open, get the seeds out, is very sour
Mhm.
and a orangey type flavor. But the skin is not very bitter, and it's actually sweet. So the orange oil or the oils in the skin are sweet, and actually the more pleasant portion of it than the fruit. So it's a nice balance. That's why a lot of times people make marmalade or preserve them or do different things. It's a nice sweet
Sweet and
sour
sour.
base. So they're really tasty. Yeah, if you find them in the store, usually in the late fall into the early winter in season, they have them. I mean, they're going to run more expensive. It's going to run especially things, but especially if they're in bulk, get a small handful of them, and yeah, they're fun. Wash them off, eat the whole thing, but watch out for the seeds. Or cut the seeds. You can't peel them, but I'll cut it in half and pop the seeds up.
Yep. So, anyway, I think it's 10 o'clock at night
Yep.
and things are slowing down. It's a little slow tonight in general, but just a reminder to Claire, either email or send me a private message on where you would like the olive oil to go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want, since there's not many people on here, you want to explain the two olive oils, the one from the family
Yeah, so we've got
grow
two. So it's called Alavanti, is the name
of
of
the
the
company?
oil and the company. They're out of Battle Creek, Michigan, direct processors and importers of the olive oil. So they have the oil actually pressed at a local certified, USDA certified press,
Yeah.
and then it has to sit, and a little bit of water
But what's the
comes
flavor
off. So we're
difference?
getting there.
Sorry.
So yeah, so they have from the parts the family grow, the very small amount is called Eden, spelled a little bit differently than we do, but phonetically it's Eden. And it is medium to quite light. It's got a slight butteriness to it, and it has a modest peppery finish. Not too strong. Some olive oils are very peppery, dries your throat out so much you cough from it. This one is light, but those are signs of high quality and complexity and freshness. The second one comes from a higher elevation, so it's the same type of olives. The higher elevation changes the flavor, sort of like grapes and wine and other fruits, leading to a more green, grassy, and slightly mineral flavor. And that's kind of from a
Okay.
consortium of growers in their village or their area. And that one is called Kadisha.
Yeah.
So effectively, very roughly the same fruit, type of trees, a few miles or kilometers apart.
A little different.
One's relatively up on a mountaintop, and the other one is a little lower. And so, yeah, but both on the definitely on the mediums side. I find that some of the, let's say, California or Italian olive oils are very aggressive, very peppery, very green, or very spicy or drying. It just depends on the variety, but many of them are prepared and grown that way
These are
and can be
more
a little
buttery.
overpowering. Well, one of them's sort of buttery, but they're just medium bodied because you
Yeah.
can have very well a light olive oil has nothing to do with the calorie or oil content. It's all oil. Some of them are just so light. If you get light olive oil in the grocery store, it could refer to the color, but it usually refers to the flavor. Basically, it tastes like neutral vegetable oil. So what's the point of buying olive oil if it's got no flavor? I guess it's somewhat of a decent oil. It's kind of a good marketing thing. So there's a reason to have a medium body because maybe you're going to put it with eggs,
Hi, white picket fence.
or maybe you're going to put it with fish because it's hard to put a lot of olive oils with fish without overpowering them. On the other hand, when you have a really aggressive one, maybe you're putting it with dandelion greens or something that's aggressive in the vegetable category. You just really want it to stand out. They all work well in finishing dishes. So yeah, that's
basically it.
That's it. So I find them pretty easy to eat, even for people that don't eat a lot of olive oil. I think it's a pretty good introduction. Whereas there are other ones I think people would have a hard time getting used to them if that's their first experience.
When you made the candied flowers, does the sugar dry clear?
No, it dries frosty.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the point. It's frosted.
Yeah. So we do have the container of them, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in the cupboard.
We're about to wrap up for the night, white picket fence, but he's going to grab it for you. And yeah, so because we've been on for an hour and I still have to go move our chickens.
I would say use most of these within like 6 months to a year. On the other hand, we had some that I think were laying around our office at one place for about 3 years.
Oh,
I mean, the flavor diminishes. So these were done very quickly.
See if we can see them up here.
Yeah. So
well,
it's focusing.
Yeah. There you go.
So we dip these in the egg white, which helps stick the sugar on, and then I put them on a bed, an excess of sugar. If you want to be very delicate about it, you can actually take a fine paintbrush and you can paint the egg white on, and then you can dust the sugar over the top, and then you can set them very gently. Probably using some forceps, you can set them on a tray and dry them, and they'll be less crystallized, or less sugared. But yeah, it's not uncommon to get them pretty frosty. Some of these have a little extra. It was really humid when we did them, so I actually put extra sugar down on the tray and waited for them to dry. It can take a day or a little more. Yeah. And then do recommend leaving a little tail or a little on stem. Whatever you use, a little stem. It does help pick them up. However, you may want to pinch that stem off.
Green Gables in the white picket fence. You missed the giveaway.
Yeah, you may want to cut the stem off because it can be a little bit hard before you serve it. Now you can serve individual petals that you've broken off of the main item, or if you get nice ones, you can serve them as garnish. So think about if you want to really upgrade your cupcakes for a party, or even like a kid's party,
Or
or
a cake,
or a cake, whether you make it or you buy it. Garnish with a few petals, either randomly put on it, or take a whole one and put it on the edge of each slice, or a few of them, and you all of a sudden went into like high level bakery quality. These could cost, say, 25 cents a piece, probably, or more, maybe 50 cents a piece extra. If you're putting one on a cake, you get a lot of money for them. So yeah, you could do a lot with some rose petals or some other herbs and delicate colored petals to really enhance you can put them on a plate, and you could finish a fancier plate, dessert plate, with a little, couple of them too. So
yeah. Cat visit. So there's a puppy sighting earlier in the video, and there's cat sighting now. How's the flavor? Sugary.
Mostly white sugary, but so we did mention in the video we use white sugar. However, I did put it in our Cuisinart, and I gave it a good spin to break it down a little bit. You can buy superfine sugar. Sometimes it's in a little 1 pound or a half pound box. Superfine sugar is really nice. Sometimes it's called 10x sugar. It's not all the way to powdered sugar. Powdered sugar I do not recommend. It's too fine. Another thing is powdered sugar, they add in starch to keep it from clumping, and that starch will taste gritty or starchy. So I don't like using powdered sugar, and even whipped cream. I don't like using it in anything unless it's going to be cooked. If it's going to be whipped into like an icing and it's got other things, then it's okay, but that starch gives off a little flavor. So avoid that, but get as fine of sugar as you can, or spin your sugar for a minute or so in a Cuisinart and break it down a little finer, and you'll get even nicer results.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we could do them for yourself.
Yeah, why not? I mean, go out to find. And I was thinking, we're saying sage or mint leaf or basil. Sage is probably pushing. It's tender, but it's thicker. Get things that are really, really delicate and tender. Otherwise, don't mess don't mess with it. It won't be tasty. And then, so what you can do when they're done, some people finish them in the refrigerator, which can be, if it gets really humid. But once you get them nice and dry, put them in a Ziploc, and ideally put a couple of desiccates, little packs, those little packs that you do not eat.
Do not eat, but they put in your pill boxes?
Yeah, put a couple of those in for long-term storage, and you won't come back and have a melted mess when you want to use them. Yep. And again, they'll last pretty good long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and that was a video that just released earlier today.
Yeah, so that was just a spur of the moment. I saw lots of violets, and I'm like, well, let's get this.
Yep.
Let's do this really quick while we have a chance.
We could do it with the rose petals later in the year if we want to.
Yeah, rose petals are much bigger, so they're harder. Then I'd be careful to actually paint. Yeah. With a very delicate brush and paint them on, but yeah, you get really, really nice results. So you can buy them imported. You could probably order them online. They come in from France and other places, and again, you're going to pay real money for them by the time you get a few.
Yeah.
So even if they aren't quite as fancy, you're going to do really well making them, and they could be ready in 2 days or something. Sure. I mean, if you began at the beginning of the week for a party on the weekend or a pastry that you were making, they'll be ready.
Anyway, you guys, we should definitely wrap this up. It's almost 10:15 here.
You can probably use your dehydrator to speed it up too.
That's true. Almost 10:15 here, and I was hoping we could get some chickens moved into their summer coop finally tonight. So it's definitely dark outside right now, but we'll be doing that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We will be back next weekend, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's not that complicated.
Yeah, we did. I didn't really not show anything, but I used it as simple, and I just dipped them. I didn't pull out forceps and brushes and get real fancy like we might on purpose, just to show the basic technique that you could refine at how easy it is. And these are the actual ones that we did. So
yeah. And that was a few weeks ago now that we recorded that. So
yeah. 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was. So good night, you guys. I hope you guys all have a good week. We will be seeing you back next week. it'll be June next week.
Yep.
So have a good week, you guys.
Good week, good Memorial Day, whether you're working or you're off. Or
Yep, have a good holiday.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.